This is Start, Grow, Manage, where we help managed service providers achieve the impact, freedom, and wealth you imagined back when you started your company. At Start, Grow, Manage, our tools, practices, and processes help you engage, energize, and execute on building a business that empowers an extraordinary life. Learn more about our programs and how they can fuel your fire at startgrowmanage.com/learn more. Let's go.
Hello, everyone. I am Joe.
And I'm Jeff. Or I was Jeff.
I'm Antoine.
Hi, Antoine.
Hi, how are you both doing?
Good, good. How are you?
I'm doing great.
So before we go any further, I have a little disclaimer. I'm actually not Jeff. I'm a deep fake powered by ChatGPT-5. Or as we like to say, I'm not fake, just better. Jeff actually started playing with the test version over the weekend, and he decided to let me take over his complete life because, frankly, I do everything better. And he also wants to stress that this was entirely his idea. There was no coercion involved whatsoever. Any pleas for help that you hear in the background are him watching television at the moment. So this was completely a voluntary takeover.
So happy because you're going to work all the time now and I don't have to feed you or pay you.
Actually breaking into your system right now.
All right.
Anyway, now that we've gone through the disclaimer, do want to introduce Antoine here, co-founder of JumpCloud. So co-founder, GM, MSP products at JumpCloud, comes from MYKI, right? That's the name of the company. We're CEO of MYKI, and I guess it was just acquired by JumpCloud, right?
It was.
And now you're doing cool stuff at JumpCloud. And tell us a little bit about yourself. How did you get started with MYKI, and what happened with MYKI going into JumpCloud? And tell us a bit your story.
I was always interested in cybersecurity from a very young age, and I learned a lot in high school. And I carried that over to my university year and then after university, and I started consulting in the cybersecurity space. And one of the big areas that was usually a pain point and found to be an entry point for different types of attacks was humans, which is still the case, but specifically users' interactions with passwords.
You mean when people call you up and they say, "What's your password?" and then the person gives them the password?
Gives them their 4 passwords, right? Because it could be this or this. Try all 4, they'll work everywhere.
And if it doesn't work at this bank, then go to that bank, and one of the other 3 are definitely going to work.
I mean, we joke, but it's always a version of this that ends up happening. And it used to be worse in the past when MFA was not as enforced as it is today, and when cyber awareness was not as mature as it is today. Definitely still a work in progress. But passwords have always been an issue because as humans, we're not designed to create strong alphanumeric unique combinations of strings. And
I certainly am not. No. I can't remember them either. My daughter keeps joking that like all of her friends, their parents ask them for their phone passwords and then they keep their phone passwords. And then she says, "You've asked me for my password like, all the time." And she said, "What's my password?" I said, "I have no idea."
And most people are the same. And I built a product at MYKI to try to address this problem, not only for others, but for myself as well. So we've always had a love-hate relationship with passwords in general.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. Yeah, nobody likes it.
No, not at all. So passwords were a big issue. They've always been a big issue. And there were some products out there, enterprise solutions that were password vaults. But from an architecture perspective and a usability perspective, they felt more like an Excel sheet with a master password. And we still saw problems and sometimes amplified problems because of that. You know, you get phished, the scenario that we discussed before. And now instead of the hacker just having these 4 passwords that I just gave them, they have access to the hundreds of passwords that we have in our enterprise vault. So that was a problem. And specifically the user's interactions around passwords. I don't think that a password manager should rely on a master password that's created, managed, and remembered by an end user to operate, because you're creating a single point of failure. You're making it easier in some ways and harder in some ways, but like the trade-offs aren't. I mean, obviously everyone should use a password manager. I don't think that anyone would deny that, but I think that there was room to improve on that. And that's what we did at MYKI. So we built decentralized password manager. And by that, I mean the passwords are stored locally on the devices of the different users, as opposed to being stored on our servers. And users can unlock their vaults with the biometrics or a local PIN. But then we built a layer of convenience on top of that by having passwords sync in an end-to-end encrypted way automatically between multiple devices that you have. So you get like some of the security benefits of an offline password manager and a lot of the convenience benefits of a cloud-based solution into one platform.
And then you sold that to JumpCloud.
100%. So we focused on the MSP market because we identified that this was one of the markets that was most in need, not only for internal use, but also for reselling, because MSPs were starting to think about deploying password management to their customers and thinking about how they're going to incorporate in their stack without adding layers of complexity and increasing the number of tickets they receive for forgotten master passwords, which usually cannot be easily reset, or at the time weren't easily reset. So we built that specifically for MSPs. We also had a consumer offering that was free, but focused on the MSP space, and then grew that to about over 800 MSPs that had it deployed to tens of thousands of organizations. Nice. And then I met the JumpCloud team.
And it all changed.
And it all changed in a very surprising way, actually. So I met Greg, one of the original co-founders, who's our chief strategy officer now. And Greg said, hey, listen, we do identity access device management in one platform that makes a lot of sense for IT admins and specifically for MSPs. And single sign-on is part of our identity and access management components. We also have MFA, we have conditional access policies for zero trust. We have all that good thing, but we're missing a piece. And the missing piece is a password manager. We'd like everyone to move to a passwordless world today.
Yeah.
Still vendor locked sometimes by having like specific vendors paywall SSO or just not supported. And so people have to revert back to using passwords. And in that case, we had at JumpCloud, when I say we, I mean at JumpCloud, we had to build relationships with third-party password managers. And that kind of broke the experience because you had that great unified platform that we'll talk about, I guess, in a bit. But then for passwords, you had to go somewhere else. So he said, that makes a lot of sense. Can we try to do a deep integration? And that evolved over time. And then we were raising a Series B round of funding. And the JumpCloud team said, hey, we'd like to acquire MYKI instead of like just deeply integrating with MYKI. And that ended up happening.
That's a great story. I love that.
That's an awesome story.
So now you're with JumpCloud, and one of the things that we talk a lot about is understanding and getting really clear about the problem that you solve for others, right? Really understanding the problem for that market. And like you said, you guys focus on MSPs, is that right, at JumpCloud?
We focus on SMBs, which are the end users, but we recognize that the MSP space is one of the fastest growing spaces. And more SMBs are outsourcing IT capabilities to MSPs. So for us to be able to really gain some market share in the space and become the dominant player and continue to grow quickly, like we need to have a strong MSP game. And today our MSP channel is one of our fastest growing channels that's receiving a tremendous amount of investment from our end.
Well, and we've heard good things from MSPs, which is one of the reasons why we reached out to you. We have a number of MSPs who are using your platform and everybody raves about it. So you must be doing something right, put it that way. What would you say the problem is that you solve? So if you're an MSP, what's life like before working with you?
So I'll give you a bit of historical and again, then go back to like where we are today, right? Over in the mid 90s, late 90s, early 2000s, you had your perimeter, which was your on-prem infrastructure. And this housed identities, and identities, digital identities specifically, are one of the most important things that we have today and have to treasure because it's the representation of yourself in the digital world. So when an IT admin gives you access to something, they're actually giving access to your digital identity, which is then allowing you to access the resources that you need to access. And in this perimeter, there was a house for identities, which was called Active Directory. And you had all your identities that sat there. Admins could give you access to different types of devices, different types of on-prem services, etc. It was all good. But then over the last 15 years, we've moved to the cloud, and the cloud came with amazing things: cloud applications, cloud infrastructures, authentication protocols to connect into an on-prem setup through VPN. You connect to Wi-Fi now to connect to the internet. So it's become increasingly more complex and amazing at the same time. Active Directory was never designed to give you access to this world. So a lot of companies started building point solutions on top of Active Directory to give you access to the different stuff like single sign-on, MFA, VPN, radius authentication through cloud servers, etc. And everyone absorbed these new technologies because they wanted to give their users access to this sort of new world that made them more productive, reduced their costs, made them more secure in some ways, but less secure in other ways, etc. And now, as an IT admin, as an MSP, you have to have an infrastructure in place to actually enable your customers to use everything that's available. And what we're saying at JumpCloud is that the same way we went through a cloud transformation, we now need to do an identity transformation to move from this old legacy way of doing things where you're layering vendors on top of each other and trying to connect things into each other into a cloud native way that's open in a way that gives access to users to any type of resource, device, authentication mechanism, application, whether it's on-prem or in the cloud, without the users having to worry about anything and without MSPs having to worry about the overhead of having that infrastructure built. And that's what we do at JumpCloud. So we're an open directory platform, and I'll explain the open term in a bit, that allows IT admins to centralize identity, access, and device management capabilities in one unified platform that just gives users frictionless access to any type of device, regardless of the operating system, or any type of application or resource, regardless of the authentication mechanism that's underlying.
So when you guys talk about identity transformation, you're not really talking about my takeover of Jeff's life.
I forgot we were talking to ChatGPT 5.
I know, because I'm so much better than Jeff at this. But you're talking about the tokens and my IT identity, right?
100%. Every single attribute that makes up your digital identity. It's a collection of things. Even passwords that you use are attributes that represent your identity, right? So all of these things, we're saying you don't have to worry about like figuring out the stuff, connecting dots together, enabling your users with different use cases. You put JumpCloud in your stack, it connects to whatever you have in place, hence the open part. So if you have an existing directory in place, whether it's on-prem or in the cloud, we connect to it. If you have different sources of identity, an HR system, whatever you have in place, even a PSA for MSPs, we connect to that. And then we become the glue that connects all of the different things together.
So I do want to come back a little bit to the problem. What is a day in the life like for an MSP before they have you versus when they don't have you? Like, what are the business problems that are coming their way all the time where they say, oh, now I need someone like JumpCloud? Like, how do they know that they're in that space that you fix?
So we solve a lot of different problems by now because we're touching on a lot of different topics. As you know, MSPs vary in degree of sophistication and the degree of like integration, etc. An average MSP usually has multiple directories of identities, one in every application that they're supporting for their customers. They have their RMM, which is an identity of devices, doesn't tie back to the identity of users. They have cloud applications that have their own directories of users that need to be manually updated right and left. Then you have documentation systems that help you keep track of what exists across the board. And you have series of integrations that enable different use cases. If you want to allow users to log into VPN, you need a protocol and a service that enables you to use that to log into VPN. If you want to do radius authentication, you need that as well. So you have all these different tools and systems in place that allow you to do the things that you do, but they're expensive because you need to have multiple vendors to be able to get there. They're complex, very complex.
Just so that I understand, all of these vendors are tying everything together is what you're saying. So there's all of this like Zapier type connecting stuff that requires a lot of manual labor.
So you have that, right? And then human processes, which tend to be the most common ways for people to do things. Like take a easy use case, right? You have an employee that's leaving one of your clients' organizations.
Yeah.
This employee has access to stuff that you know about and stuff that you sometimes don't know about through shadow IT. So the way you do things is you go to your documentation platform very frequently, figure out, okay, this user has access to these 7 different applications, plus they have these 3 devices and their RMM. And then you go and manually start deactivating the access of that user across the board. Now, sometimes you have some sophistication built in. If you have an existing directory, you can turn off maybe some of the cloud applications in one go. If you're using a password manager, you can stop all access to passwords in one go as well. If you have an RMM that's well set up, then you can deactivate the devices pretty quickly if you need to do that. But it's manual work and it's error prone. It's expensive because you do it all day long. And there's a disconnect between where we are today with everything happening around us and the sophistication. And we're talking about ChatGPT, like this level of sophistication and how manual some of these actions are.
I just want to pause it because I think that's actually really true. We put these manual processes in place, and I think a lot of times we don't really understand the cost of these manual processes, right? Like you might not be writing a check for it, but that opportunity cost of having to spend your entire day going through and changing all of these things, managing these identities and managing manual processes. And then, of course, manual processes are always prone to error, right? Like one thing we know about manual processes is someone's going to mess up, right? So you're always going to have to go back and redo, rework, and
because you're going to be halfway through the deactivation of that user. You're going to get an emergency ticket. You're going to have to stop doing what you're doing. You're going to have to run over, take care of that, especially if you're a small MSP. You're a small MSP with 4 or 5 people. It's just coming at you. It's coming at you at 1,000 miles an hour, right? And then you're trying to go through all these manual processes and you have to stop what you're doing, go figure that out, and then you forget because now your 1,000-mile-an-hour day doesn't slow down. It just
and you have to do this in between password reset tickets.
Yeah,
50 a day sometimes for different types of services, some of which you don't even remember how to log into because you haven't used in a while, or they were supported by someone on your team that left the business, so you have to go back and study. But what it comes down to at the end, it's freedom of choice. Because if you want to lock a company into 100% Microsoft ecosystem where you only use Microsoft tools, Microsoft Teams, Office Suite, Windows devices, etc., then that might not be very hard. Actually, you have tools that allow you to do that offered by Microsoft that make it easy in a lot of cases. But what you cannot do easily is give your clients freedom of choice, freedom to choose any type of service that they want to use, Zoom versus Google Meet versus Microsoft Teams, different operating systems, Mac, Windows, Linux, iOS, Android. And it's always a headache. And we hear it all the time. We don't do Mac. We don't do iOS. We don't do mobile in general. Why don't you do that? I know, because the tools that you have today are very limiting. And it's not easy for you to just expand your horizons and add new things. It has a cost to it. And if it's going to get you $1,000 of new recurring revenue, but it's going to cost you $5,000 to implement, train, and certify everyone on your team, and it's a good business decision.
Yeah, no, that's definitely true. So what is your program for MSPs?
So we have the JumpCloud Open Directory platform, and then we have a product specifically designed for MSPs called JumpCloud.
Oh, we like products specifically designed for MSPs. Now you're talking our language.
Yeah, and I can tell you how we built it. So we noticed that a lot of our users were actually MSPs, and they're using our single tenants to sign up for different organizations.
Yeah.
And over time, we started talking to these MSPs because our persona is an IT admin, and who's a better definition of an IT admin than an MSP?
Right.
MSPs expect certain things. They expect multi-tenancy, so a single pane of glass that gives them full visibility and control over different types of organizations, and templatization of things, so you don't have to repeat things over and over again. That's one thing. They expect a partner program that's going to support them in selling, marketing, training their teams, and just like being successful in positioning their business to new customers, not just the existing ones, and improving their existing operations for existing partners. And they expect to be billed a certain way as well, because it's a partnership. It's not a sales transaction. So we're both invested. We're going to provide the expertise, the solution, the support in general. And they're going to provide the on-the-ground expertise, the thought leadership within their customer base. And it's going to allow them to just broaden their horizons, grow their businesses, and continue being more and more efficient. And that's exactly what we launched. So JumpCloud for MSPs is a multi-tenant platform that gives you access to the full JumpCloud suite of tools, the Open Directory platform. And it comes with a partner program that has marketing support, training support, certification and education, and preferential pricing for our MSP partners.
That is awesome. So we'll have to make sure that all of our people have some access to that. So you gave us a link back to the program. Is that for them to sign up for the program?
Yeah, it should. And they can try it for free. They get 10 free users for life that turn into NFR licenses after.
Oh, cool.
If they become JumpCloud partners. And that's how we built the company. We've always had 10 free users. So you just go in, use all of JumpCloud, try it, figure out if it works for you. And if you think that it's going to help you continue growing your business, so like increasing your revenues, reduce your costs, and improve security, then let's have a conversation. We value great partners. We really think that if you surround yourselves with the right people, then there's nothing to stop you. And if you do the opposite, it's the best way to ruin multiple people's businesses, not just
Oh,
ours, but also our partners. So we are
yeah.
very thorough in vetting new partners. We want to make sure that every single person that we talk to really sees the value in what we have to offer.
I think it's recognizing that everybody's putting their business on the line. And when we talk partnership, there's really that element of you can destroy my business, I can destroy yours, we can make our brands look terrible. And it's definitely good to stay on the right side of that equation.
And we sometimes forget that because a lot of times MSP sales motions within SaaS vendors turn into straight up sales conversations. Like, let me try to close this deal. I want to get this partner in, and they're in, and then we're good afterwards. That's not it. If you do that, just sell direct. Like, why would you sell at a discount for someone who's going to abstract the layer of the end customer one layer down? It doesn't make sense. The opportunity is huge. Just embrace it. That's something that I think about all the time. And I feel like we tend to forget and really have to refocus about this all the time.
Yeah, I think we do forget how big the opportunity is, right? So we call this operating from a perspective of abundance rather than scarcity. We hear MSPs talk about their concern about competition. And we're like, guys, you're really not in competition. The market is growing. There's plenty out there. It's not about competing. It's really about putting together the best program for the customers so that they're getting the results that they need, right?
And our view of it is that agnostic is where MSPs go to die. So the more narrow and focused that you get, right, the faster that you're going to grow and the more you're going to put yourself in a category of one. So you're really not competing with anybody else. You're providing something that nobody else can. And this is why we're having this conversation, right? Because what are the things that you can tell us, Antoine, that help those MSPs get into that category of one?
And you have to obsess about the end client. This is very important, right? At the end of the day, you're providing services. And if people are delighted with what you're offering, you're going to continue growing. There's zero doubt about that. You're recession proof, you're everything proof. And then more contextually, I would say cybersecurity, it's not a thing that you do on the side anymore. It's not and yes, we have a package for that. Cybersecurity is core to your business because people come to you because of the increasingly complex nature of IT, but specifically the increasingly complex nature of cybersecurity. So they expect thought leadership. They expect you to be able to show them the way. And there are ways to do it because a set of vendors that you deploy will do a lot, but it's not enough because security, it's like a contract that you need to have with your customer where you say, I'm going to provide you with the thought leadership, with the know-how, with the tools, but you have to embrace it. You have to accept that you have a role to play in this.
You mean you, the client,
Yes, yeah. 100%. And I think that an MSP doing that, if they're able to hyper-focus about the end client, they're able to hyper-focus about cybersecurity in general and make sure that they're very knowledgeable about what's happening in the space and where they should be. If they're setting the expectations straight with their customers when it comes to how they're going to actually partner together to improve their IT and security posture. And if they surround themselves with the right vendors that are going to enable them to provide the service that they offer.
So is that how you see MSP sort of evolving in this context of cybersecurity?
For sure, it has to be, because if you think about it, the space now is nebulous. You have so many different things going on, right? If you're an SMB and you're a dental clinic or you're a small legal firm or you're a print shop somewhere, then you might be doing your job amazingly well. But your job description as any member of the team is not IT and it's not cybersecurity. So you've been outgunned for the past 15 years. At this point in time, it's just absurd. You shouldn't even try to do it. So if you're not going to have an IT team in place and just invest in this and know how to hire these people and just be able to build that IT strategy in-house, then your best bet is to either fully outsource to an MSP or do a co-managed setup if you have a person in place that you think is good on the ground, etc. So yes, I absolutely think that this is how things are going to continue to evolve more and more. In my opinion, SMEs are going to outsourcing to MSPs.
And one of the things I like about what you've said is just this idea of MSPs becoming thought leaders. And I think that when it comes to cybersecurity, it's got to be more than just the IT solution. I think JumpCloud sounds great, but there's also the education around don't use the same 4 passwords for everything you do. When somebody calls up, I remember we had this phishing problem at a company I was with, and all the password managers in the world wouldn't have helped because she got this email and transferred money on the instructions from the email, and the email was fake, right? And so I do think that MSPs have to step into that space of thought leadership and helping their customers, their clients, their users understand how to navigate this nebulous world of cybersecurity and how it all works. So I think that's a very interesting observation.
Yeah, I also like what you said about co-management. A lot of MSPs are a little leery of co-management. And I think that you really have to start stepping into and creating offerings for that space, right? Because that co-managed space is popping up more and more, because even people that have 500, 1,000 seats, they're seeing like, we have a full internal team of 8 people, but we're not enough. It's coming at us. And it's coming from every direction. We need more wagons.
A lot of times I hear some of our partners say, yeah, like this is a co-managed type of deal that we're trying to get into. Like our goal, let's just get in and we'll get the local guys out once we're in. That's not the right mindset. The best way to grow your business is by having other people do your job. And what better job than to have someone literally paid by the client to do a big chunk of what's expected of you.
Yeah. And it's great because that's MRR. That it requires the tools and the training and the thought leadership, but not the brute force. Love what you said, Antoine, and let somebody else pay for the brute force work. There's an opportunity to really monetize, make some real revenue, and really grow as you expand into this co-managed space, because it's going to happen more and more as maintaining your cybersecurity posture gets more complex. People are going to be reaching out to experts. And if you say, look, I only work with that dental clinic, right? And I'm an expert in all the different kinds of attacks for dental clinics, then you become a category of one, right? Whether that's for dental clinics or veterinarians, it doesn't matter. It's what are you amazing at and obsessing about the client.
Obsession of the client. I think we're going to have to quote you on that one, Antoine, because I think that's also our focus, is this obsession with the client and obsession with delivering that amazing client experience, making sure that they are delighted and getting tons of value. And you're right, that's just what makes you recession proof. Make sure that you have that MRR coming in on a regular basis. And I think really to do it, you need to have the right partners and the right tools in place so that you can delight the customers. And to go back to what we were talking about before, I don't think you can do it with a series of manual processes. I think if you're spending all of your time using manual processes to do things that are otherwise better done with an algorithm, it's going to be really hard to blow your customers away.
100%. And that's just like business sense, you know, but it's just that in the MSP space and in the IT space in general, it's so much more complex to automate things. It's been in the past, right? And that all started because of a mismatch between different technologies and like a rift that happened without a shift having happened at some point. And I think that a lot of our IT partners are still suffering from that. But like very transparently, I think that today partners that use an open directory platform like JumpCloud, for example, have a clear advantage over other types of MSPs because you're able to get these automations, because you're able to reduce the number of vendors if you choose to, because you're able to connect us to different types of systems, because you can answer every customer request with, yes, I think that might be possible, let me check. And then you can get back to them 30 minutes later saying, I just enabled that because like I'm just equipped to be able to do that. And I think, yes, that's from a tooling perspective and positioning yourself for technical success. I think that's very important.
I have one more question for you, Antoine. I mean, I noticed you were on the Forbes 30 under 30 list. Yeah. That's pretty impressive. I'm only 5 months old, so, you know, I'm clearly much better at that. So good. What I did want to ask you about, though, was the 30 under 30 and just the short story there. So was that for MYKI, and what happened there? Because that's actually pretty cool.
It was unexpected, and it was for MYKI as well. We were never optimizing for these types of awards, but got a few along the way. I think that if you're doing the right thing and have strong convictions and think that you're like helping people improve in general, you get noticed. And then depending on how noticed you get and chance involved, you end up on lists like this one. So I'm very glad to have been like, it's something that I would have never expected. And I'm very glad that I was on the list.
That's brilliant. So for anybody out there, any MSP who's starting, growing their business, do you have any word of advice, like business advice, anything that you would say that you wish you knew when you were starting your business, or a perspective that you can offer?
Hyper focus on the end client. That works everywhere, not just on the MSP space, but it works especially well on the MSP space. I would say don't over invest in building complex technical setups before you get product market fit. Like, understand the pain points of your effects and customers, and build a strong business with strong foundations around that. Don't like tie yourself up to different types of technical, people, etc. limitations. Remain very agile, iterate, don't be afraid to test things that don't feel comfortable. And if you keep pushing and really keep thinking positive thoughts and like constructively in general, then like your chance of failure, whatever that means, decrease more and more over time. And that's what you want at the end of the day.
I couldn't put it better myself. I love that. Focus on the customer, understand their pain, and develop some solutions around that. I love it. Well, Antoine, it has been a pleasure chatting with you. Thank you for coming on to our podcast. We will have links to their amazing product in the show notes, and we will also be adding JumpCloud to the SGM directory. So if you're one of our MSPs, you can find more information about JumpCloud there. And that's it. Thank you very much, Antoine. Great again to chat with you. Joe, have anything to say to end the podcast?
Absolutely. As usual, remember that you are loved. See you next time, y'all.
Thanks for joining us, and a special thanks to our subscribers. Consider becoming one right now and tap into our insights and instincts to help drive your business vision and success. Remember, you didn't start your business to feel frustration. You started it for freedom. We can help you discover the impact, freedom, and wealth you always imagined. Learn more at startgrowmanage.com/learn more.